Welcome to In the Cut, the show that gets you up close and personal with BN and our community. And now, here is your host, Kevon Cameron.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to In the Cut, the show that gets you up close and personal with BN, our community, our happenings, and all the good stuff going on with the organization. I am Kevon Cameron. I am the lead organizer of BlackNonbelievers New York City. And this show is a production of BlackNonbelievers. It's a 501c3 organization headquartered in the Atlanta area. We connect with Blacks and others and allies who are living free of religion and might otherwise be shunned by their families and friends by providing caring, friendly, and informative community. Instead of accepting dogma, we determine truth and morality through reason and evidence. The mission of BlackNonbelievers, of course, is to provide secular fellowship, nurture and support non-believers in coming out, encourage pride in non-religious identities, and educate the public on both the history and the current state of non-belief in the Black community, and to organize for events and charitable causes. BN welcomes all, regardless of age, gender identity, sexual identity, national origin, racial identity. However, our content and work prioritizes Black non-religious voices. With that said, I'd like to welcome my co-host, Mandisa Thomas, the president and founder of BlackNonbelievers. How's it going, Mandisa?
It's actually going pretty good. Pardon the green screen in the back. I just finished a presentation with the Shameless Sexuality Conference that is taking place this weekend. And actually, Kevon, we concluded the Women of Color Beyond Belief Conference the first weekend in October. And you just spoke at California Free Thought Day last weekend. So I was happy to be in attendance there, and we were one of the sponsors. So you want to tell the viewing audience how that felt for you? How was your first actual public speaking engagement? I'm gonna wear my interview hat for a moment.
It was nerve-wracking. I'm not in general a long-winded person. I like to be as concise as possible, and I hate rambling. I feel like people aren't interested in what I have to say. It's one of the great things about this show is it's not about me. I like to throw in a little tidbit here and there, but it's not really about me. But I'm grateful for the experience. I'm glad you recommended me for that. It's good. It's good to step out of my comfort zone, which is what I've been doing with the whole organizing. As I mentioned before, I never intended to run a meetup group. I had the idea for the YouTube show, but I never intended to host it. And I've just been following that just sort of go with it philosophy for the past 4.5 years, and it seems to be working out.
Well, yeah, and of course, we are here as a team to help develop that. It's always a good thing for us to do. And which leads us into, the conversation, especially for this month, as it focuses on, like sex and sexuality and, letting go of those stigmas, letting go of, and embracing the things that, we either want to do or, never thought that we could do. And so I'm very, very happy about the guest that we have on. She was just recently a speaker at the Women of Color Beyond Belief Conference, and looking forward to the interview today. And for those of you who weren't aware, October is National Kink Month. It's very, it's very interesting. I did a photo shoot a few years ago, actually 3 years ago, with a photographer who does BDSM stuff and, and celebrates, what is considered alternative lifestyles. And I went to an event where they did a demonstration for rope bonding, which was very interesting to me. It takes a vulnerability, it takes, trust, and it's a very, it's a good educational experience to see what goes on in these different communities, and also how they may overlap, how they may intersect with ours. We're a community where we like to kind of show off our intellectual, capabilities, but there's nothing wrong with exploring that side of us. And the conference that I was a part of, that I'm a part of this weekend, I just did my talk, which was called Confessions of a Good Girl from the Projects. So I talk about my upbringing, some of the things that I've seen, and also how I was able to come to terms with areas of my life that may be a little uncomfortable for others, and at times was uncomfortable for me. But, you know, it's important for us to embrace those parts of ourselves, what we like, what we don't like, how we can communicate that with other partners and other people, and sort of be true to ourselves, even when others cannot be, which is an unfortunate truth for many of us. So I'm, again, definitely looking forward to the conversation that you, Kevon, will have with our guest. I don't want to say who she is because that's for you to introduce. So, with that, was there anything else that you wanted to add about Women of Color Beyond Belief and California Free Throw Day? I thought you did a good job. I thought you did really well. I think that your sense of humor and the way you talk, it really went over well with the audience. And also this weekend, it will be restreamed. California Free Thought Day was having issues with live streaming it, so they will be restreaming it tomorrow, just as an FYI. But I thought you did very well. It is the first of many that I'm sure, first of many live appearances that you will have. And also think of this as a practice. This is a way for, I know you've done other shows in addition to this one. So this is a really good way to get, and not just to get your feet wet, but keep them wet and to get immersed in this aspect of community. So I look forward to that for you and for many others.
Okay, we'll see how it goes. I'm gonna stick with the philosophy of just go with it. But yeah, Women of Color is always my favorite. I think Chicago is the city is the city I hate least of every non-New York city. So Chicago is really cool. I like it. We didn't get to explore much this time, but next year. So I love that. It was a lot of great speakers, of course, Foxy in her panel, and Nadia, and it's great to see Bridget from Detroit and Tina from Charlotte. It's always good to see everyone. And Sacramento was amazing for Free Thought Day. It was amazing. I was there for a short time, but it was really cool to hang out. Never been to California before, so that was really cool. Yeah, it's good to have new experiences and push myself outside of my comfort zone.
Yes, and working with me, you will definitely do that. So,
Yay!
Yeah. You don't sound so excited about that. No, I'm just kidding.
It's cool.
But no, yeah. But I will turn it over to you to get the show started.
All right, Mandy. Thanks. All right, our very, very, very special guest today is someone you may not be aware of, but you will be. I'd like to welcome our guest today, Foxy Jazzabelle, pronouns she and her, is a media and culture critic who serves up cheeky yet thoughtful commentary, advice, and more on her blog, Foxy Jazzabelle. She has provided a keen treatise and reviews for outlets such as Sci-Fi, Nerds of Color, and Blurred Galaxy magazine. Foxy also advocates for sex positivity and liberation for Black and non-Black marginalized groups from white supremacist capitalism patriarchy and its ideology. She was a speaker and panel moderator at the 2020 and also 2021 Women of Color Beyond Belief Conference. Welcome to the show, Foxy. Oh, we can't hear you, Foxy.
Can you hear me now?
Awesome.
Oh, yes. Okay, cool. Thanks for having me. Sorry, it was on mute. Yeti. Sorry.
No worries. So Foxy, we met a couple of times, even though you are currently like 10 miles from me. We've only ever seen each other in Chicago. So I'm going to start out the interview the same way we started out with everyone. Tell us a bit about yourself and your journey through religion and secularism.
Okay, so basically, it's funny. Mandy had just said that she did a talk about, growing up with, sex, trying to be sex positivity and all that from the hood and everything. Well, being another local resident of the hood, I can remember being taught to just to make yourself into an object for men and boys to look at and acquire and all that. It wasn't it was never my cup of tea. I was always a bit of a rebel in regards to um, enforced heteronormativity and all that jazz. But I'd still been somewhat religious until I got to my late teens and early 20s. I found religion to be antiquated. It didn't really serve me as a person. But of course, being in a family where grandmother was raised Baptist, so pretty much that means everyone in the family is a Baptist. So, going to church on Sunday was a sort of a mandatory thing. So having to deal with that and sort of rebel against that in my late teens, I ended up landing on agnosticism for a little while. Actually, no, wait, sorry. I actually landed in paganism during my first college stint from 18 to 21, because I was the treasurer of this Wiccan pagan association. So that pretty much opened up the door for me to not only just explore other things, but also, put me on the path to understanding religions as man-made things. So once that door was open for me, it was a wrap. I just kept going until eventually I found myself understanding that I didn't really need religion. And, the more I realized that, the more I started coming a bit more into conflict with family, especially my grandmother, since she was the one that I was living with most of the time. And she was still very active in her church. So, but yeah, eventually I made my way from Christianity to paganism to agnosticism, and then pretty much landed on atheism and accepting that. Well, I mean, I pretty much accepted that. Like, I thought that Christianity was pretty much BS anyway. It just took me a while to accept more of that in myself, and to also find more people like me, because it's, at the time, this was like in the early aughts, it kind of felt like Black atheists were a dime a dozen. So, but luckily I was able to find people through Facebook. I remember finding Black Atheists of America, and also stumbling onto the BlackNonbelievers group on Facebook. So, so being active online really helped me find my tribe, and participating in events put on by African Americans for Humanism. At the time, they were much more active, and they had events, especially during Black History Month. So that helped me link up with more Black atheists and more secular folks. So yeah, that was pretty much my journey in the beginning, and I just pretty much kept going from there.
Yeah, the knowing what I know about you, the paganism thing doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah, but African Americans for Humanists, shout out to Debbie Goddard. She ran that now of American Atheists. She ran that for a while. That African Americans for Humanism was great. It's actually how I sort of got my way into the atheist community as well. So that was really, really cool. But so that's sort of your religious journey. But now you focus on sex positivity. What can you tell me? Like, you do different shows. You're on this show. You're on YouTube a lot. What is the main focus of your show? First, what is your show called, so people can know? And what is the main focus of the show, you would say?
Well, I just Actually, I just started doing a small little talk show thing on Twitch. It's called So This Is What It Is. So I find that it had always been hard for me to sort of find a niche because I have a lot of general interest, atheism, secularism, humanism, also in regards to nerd stuff, comic books, geek stuff, video games, fighting games specifically. So it was always hard for me to find like a specific tribe and stay there. But the common denominator for all my interests in all those spaces is the need for everyone to become more sex positive and make these spaces much more sex positive. So that's kind of where I come in. So I talk about uh, a lot of different topics. I may touch on pop culture things from time to time, but usually it's within the vein of trying to get everybody to try to I hate to use this word because it's used so negatively these days, to divest from sex negativity, from sexism, sexist thinking, aka patriarchal ideology. It's a term that I stay using forever on Twitter, but it's it's the truth. So you know so I find that that's pretty much the main focus for me in all the spaces that I inhabit. And I was recently talking about how the community that's centered around fighting games, how much that sex positivity is still needed even in those spaces.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember the controversies years ago about women in gaming. We're not gonna dive headfirst into that, but
Oh, it was even that was a recent thing because someone posted this meme basically being mad that apparently no women were nerds back in the 80s, but now we're suddenly into things. And it's like, we've always been here. We just didn't want to be around you because, gatekeeping and all that bullshit. You guys didn't like us. Either you hated us, or you thought either we were interlopers, or we had to go through some gatekeeping, nerd some jumping through hoops for nerd credentials. And it's like, ain't nobody got time for that. So
yeah, that's a weird argument. It's like what if that was argument was used for like baseball, like black people, if black people weren't into baseball, does that mean we should have never broken into the game at some point? Just because a group of people didn't show an interest doesn't mean they can't develop an interest. We're all human beings. We can develop and evolve, and even if women had never been into games, that's not a reasonable argument to keep them away from gaming now. So I don't really get
yeah,
that.
on top of the fact that black people not being into baseball, on top of that just being an outright lie. you
Yeah.
know so
Yeah, but given that you came from a religious background and you found your way out of that, and now you're working in sex positivity, I want to ask you, in your opinion, how does religion and society also impact our sexuality and our ability to pursue happy, healthy sex lives with ourselves and each other, in your opinion?
Well, religion is it's still a huge cultural aspect of society, right? I know as someone from the north, I really couldn't understand it, but when I joined Black Nonbelievers and saw that it was mostly groups from the south concentrated, you know asking folks, what their interests are, asking folks, what church they go to, is as part of the culture as asking them, what type of cakes and pies they like, and what their other interests are. So it's such a and of course for us, for black Americans, descendants of formerly enslaved folks, you know religion has sort of been really intertwined, intersected with the black identity. So it's always assumed that anytime you meet a black person, that they're more likely going to be religious or spiritual in some way. So as you can see, it's such a major aspect of our culture and society, and it's how most of us are introduced to, to morals and morality and how to go about the world, so, and how to feel about ourselves. So if we're taught that men and women are supposed to be one compulsory sexuality, that we're supposed to behave in arbitrary ways that are made compulsory, and that sex is only right if it's done when you're married and for procreation, that's going to have significant negative effects on on our feelings about sex and sexuality and being able to have sex lives. I mean, according to most fundamentalists, women and girls aren't even supposed to have sex lives. Our purpose is to just be groomed to be broodmares and to serve men and boys. First our fathers and other male relatives, and then later our husbands. So.
Yeah. How do you think, given that your work revolves around this, how do you think we can sort of dismantle some of that purity culture and shaming and promote sort of sex and body positivity and more alternative lifestyle positivity?
It definitely requires unlearning what we've learned. Sex negativity, sexism, sexist thinking. It's all part of the social contract that we're all indoctrinated into from cradle to the grave. So these are things that we are told, just are the way they are, just natural, and to not question it. And if you question it, you're not towing the line. And others are incentivized socially and culturally to keep everybody in line. So unlearning that, divesting from that, it leaves you free from shame, because you realize that there is nothing to feel ashamed about in regards to sex and sexuality. Majorities of species on this planet have sex for pleasure and for procreation. So sex is not just deemed for just one thing. And and if you doubt me, again, Google bonobos. So and watch how they get down. Okay, it's not just for procreation. So, so once you understand that there is no shame to be had in sex, that sex is pleasurable and something to be taken seriously, then you start to feel more positive about other things, like understanding how important sexual compatibility is in relationships. You won't just see it as something shallow. You'll see sexual health just as important as, physical, mental, and emotional health. There wouldn't be stigma around things still, such as condom usage. More people in the world, aka cis hetero men, more of them would use condoms more consistently if there was no stigma attached to it. Folks would understand that all types of sex work is just work, it's labor, and there wouldn't be stigma attached to it, to the point of private companies deciding who they will and will not do business with just because they twirl around on a pole or, do a cam show or whatever.
Yeah, the sex work thing is really interesting, because it seems like just in the last 10-15 years or so that it's become more acceptable within mainstream society. I remember even people who would describe themselves as like leftist socialist types back in maybe as early as the 2005-ish would have been like, oh, sex work, oh god, no. So it's really interesting to see how that especially not so much in more conservative communities, but it's nice to see, at least within the more open-minded progressive communities, that it's starting to be recognized as a legitimate way of making money and living your life, and not just this, like, it was always weird to me that was looked down upon within our community.
Well, because again, it goes back to what we're taught is moral, aka right and wrong. We're told that there is only one right way to have sex, and to have it to have sex for pleasure and or do anything sexual for pleasure or for compensation is morally wrong, because we're selling our bodies, and it's like, what are you talking about? The person isn't, I'm not sorry. I guess if I come off more biased because I'm a sex worker myself, then it's just the way it is. You're just gonna have to take it. But we're not selling our bodies. It is a commodity. We are providing a service, whether it's just whether a person is just selling pictures or panties or their time, because that's what's being paid for. And there is intellectual and mental labor involved in that. Like, you would be surprised for how much the same amount of labor that you have to employ in sex work, you do if you're just a customer service representative. You have to humor people that you would not humor if unless you were getting paid to. So how is that different from dealing with like office politics? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
but people fail to connect the dots, because sex, nasty, dirty, risky, but you can only do it with the person you're married to, and only to make kids. Other than that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I've always for me, I've always approached sex work as more of a bodily autonomy thing. It's like it hasn't been any different than abortion to me. You should be able to control your body and do with it what you want to do. It doesn't make sense to legislate or criminalize people, or even shame people, even outside of the law, just shame people for doing what they want with their bodies. It's just ridiculous to me.
It makes no sense, but it makes sense when you understand that, again, since it's part of since sexism and sexist thinking, since patriarchal ideology is part of the social contract, and people are incentivized to keep everybody in line. That's where the shame comes in. Shaming folks is a mechanism of policing their behavior. So you shame somebody enough you make someone feel bad enough about being gay or being bisexual or being trans. They're gonna develop negative associations towards that. If you shame kids, if you shame a child about touching themselves because they're at that age of exploring their bodies, then then they're going to develop negative associations with masturbation and self-pleasure. Even though the Mayo Clinic even lets people know that kids start exploring their bodies as early as maybe 13, 14 months. So they're already touching themselves and seeing and finding out about their bodies. So it's like, it's up to you to just step in and understand that it's a natural thing. But hey, maybe not do it when we're waiting for the bus or anything. Like, that's okay. It's okay for to set to teach healthy boundaries around it, not like shameful restrictions or stigmas or anything like that. Now, side note, there is a place for that. That's where kink comes in. So, no kink shaming over here, because a lot of times you'll find people sometimes working out their sex negativity through kink. Sometimes it can be sort of the means to unlearning a lot of things. Or sometimes there's just like, oh, I was shamed because I sort of like this sort of thing. But being a bottom to this person and them shaming me about it helps me get through it and just does something for me. So that's the only realm where shame and stuff kind of works. But other than outside of that, no.
Yeah, there's definitely too much shame around sex within the culture, and I definitely agree that it's a weird it's a weird sexism thing, because like prostitute, oh no, ew, but gigolo, yeah, sure, you're having sex with lots of women, oh, you're getting paid. It's definitely
that definitely, again, that goes back to sexism, and it goes back to the ideology. Men are encouraged to be to to be sexually virile and to be the main consumers of sex. Even though with certain religions, they may try to police men's behaviors in certain type of ways, because that's sort of the catch-22 with being on top of the hierarchy. You're expected to be this NPC of what a man and a boy are supposed to be, but there's a bit more understanding when you falter from being holy, aka, oh, well, that girl she was wearing a certain type of clothing that just made you weak.
Yeah,
and all of that. So even though the ideology may put certain things on you, it kind of employs cognitive dissonance and hypocrisy to sort of maintain that hierarchy, and to let men and boys off the hook and just put the blame on girls and boys. Oh, she was wearing this skirt that was too short. Oh, she was wearing this, she was doing that. So she looked a certain way. So obviously she wanted that certain type of attention or behavior from other people. And it's like, no, I'm wearing this shirt because I like it. Like, see, hey, look at this shirt that I'm wearing. I happen to be okay with how my body is. So I like this shirt. That doesn't mean I want somebody to, harass me or try to assault me. It's not how this goes.
Yeah, it doesn't even make sense, like, culturally, and not so much religion, because as you said, religion does try to sort of police both genders a bit, not women as much not men as much as women, but it's never made sense to me, because societally, especially growing up, it's like boys are expected to go out there and have all the sex possible, but then girls are expected to never have sex, and it's like, who am I supposed to have sex with if the girls are never supposed to have sex? It's very weird.
Exactly. And sometimes it's a shame, like, if more folks would just sit down and actually think about what you just said. We're taught so many opposing messages because as long as it just gets us as long as it accomplishes the task of policing someone's behavior more than the other, like, that's it. As long as it accomplishes that goal, then it's whatever. But we're stuck with these conflicting messages and all this cognitive dissonance, where it's like, okay, so I'm pure until I have sex with this one person, then having this one and doing this one act with this one person or with this one guy makes me impure. So what does that say about the guy that being with them, all of a sudden I just become unpure? You know what I mean? So what does that say about men and boys if all it takes is to just be with them one time for a woman or a girl to become impure, all of a sudden, and that's where a lot of these issues come from: the purity culture, the fetishizing of virginity, and shaming to keep us in line, to keep us pure, so that we can be so that our husbands have the pleasure of sullying us. But it's okay because it's our husband it's our husband making us dirty. So
Yeah.
and Nubia forbid if you're a woman or a girl and you understand, you're like, this shit doesn't make any sense. This is bullshit. I'm gonna own my body. I'm gonna be my own person, and I'm just gonna be fucking, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. Then you're basically like, I hate to bring up The Handmaid's Tale, but you basically become an unwoman at that point. So
Yeah, I definitely agree. We have talked about, and it's going to be a little weird to get into, but it's necessary. We talked about religion and how that negatively impacts sexuality, but there have been issues within the secular community as well.
Oh, absolutely.
How do you see that in general? Has that been getting better? Because you've been to Women of Color, which is a great, open, accepting conference, and it's mostly women, and I hope there are no issues there. But you've been in other spaces around other atheists. I'm assuming mostly males, because a lot of atheist spaces tend to be male. How have you seen that in the past? Has it changed? It's getting better?
Yeah, this touches on a lot of things that we've talked about. That we talked about at the conference,
Yeah.
during downtime and everything. Okay, so I'm sure everyone, for folks who are not aware, there was a time in movement atheism where once it became apparent that arguing against Christians, fundamentalists, once it became apparent that we sort of won that war, uh, there was a new enemy to fight. And because of a certain secular skeptic person by the name of Rebecca Watson, that new enemy became feminism. So, for a time, there was definitely a rise in anti-feminism backlash, and it got pretty ugly. As someone who was wading in those waters and had often been the target of anti-feminist ire. Um, I don't see it as much these days, but given that there's still issues in regards, the mainstream sort of mainstream atheist, secular, humanist spaces versus the ones that we have to make. I would not say that that anti-feminism as an issue and sexism and everything. I wouldn't say that the issue has gone away. I seriously doubt it. I guess I just don't engage as many people in that as I used to, because for me it's like, how many times can you bump your head up against a brick wall before realizing that maybe my energy would be better used elsewhere to sort of help people, decolonize their minds from that to unlearning that, because that is basically the problem. Just because if if folks don't have religion to rationalize sexism and sexist thinking, folks will find more secular means of doing it, via relying on pseudoscience, like, oh, it's just the way things are, it's natural. To take a quote from Anchorman, you're a woman with a small brain. Men just have, all women have smaller brains than men. It's just science. So that's sort of where that went. And then that's when you realize that, again, just because someone has discarded religion doesn't mean that they are actually rational or logical. They do still have their coveted things. Religion isn't necessarily necessary to perpetuate patriarchy, even though it's the most generally, it's the main one. It's one of the main ones.
It's the
But
easiest.
it's and it's the
yeah.
easiest. It's the easiest one, and the one that everyone is introduced into the most. But if not religion, then pseudoscience. Things like evolutionary psychology, which is just nonsense. Folks will try to utilize biology, the natural sciences, to just the same way where if folks didn't use religion to justify racism, they'll use scientific racism, the bell curve, phrenology, all of that. Same thing in regards to gender issues, and and secular folks who are anti-queer and anti-trans.
Yeah. A couple more questions for you before we start wrapping up. First one is, in the intro, we were talking more about not just sexuality, but alternative sort of lifestyles, such as poly, ethically non-monogamous. First, I don't think we've talked a lot. We talked a lot at conferences at Women of Color last time and this year, but I don't think we got into. You classify yourselves in any of those categories? Would you say you're poly, non-monogamous?
I identify as ethically non-monogamous. I've participated. I was in I did polyfidelity for close to a decade with a married couple. We were in a long distance relationship for close to a decade, and we all practiced ethical non-monogamy together. That's pretty much how I stumbled onto. So we all pretty much just kind of stumbled into it together. So it was definitely more of a trial by error thing. So, and then after a while, started looking more into it, started looking up more resources, looking up more books about it, as I realized that it actually fits me more, not as sort of a not to necessarily like be reactionary to compulsive monogamy and everything like that. you know Once you sort of get out of the 101 phases, when you find that you're not adhering to the status quo, you you start doing a more digging much more deeper into things, especially once you're on the path of realizing that, hey, I actually care that most of the things that I hold to as truths are actually true. So let me figure some more stuff out.
Yeah. Do you see more acceptance in that, as we talk about acceptance as far as sex work and sexuality and things? Do you see more acceptance of non-religious relationship, non-traditional relationship dynamics?
I see. I think, yeah, the paradigm is shifting little by little, and then you start to see more. I think what folks need to understand is that these types of relationships have always existed. It's just that not everyone talks about it, because again, the culture still kind of functions on binaries, gender binaries, compulsory monogamy, compulsive heteronormativity. Like folks got, they were all in a rage once finding out about Will and Jada Smith's marriage, how they ran their relationship. So it's like, if they had a conniption about that, then it's like, there's still some work to be done.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks try to jump into those type of relationships thinking that they're easy, and it's like, you can't even handle effective communication in a monogamous relationship. And in a non-monogamous relationship, you need to be able to communicate your needs and wants, your feelings, even more so, and with possibly more than one person. So if you can't do it with one person, like you're asking for a load of trouble trying to do it with more than one, trying to engage with more than one person.
Yeah. I had one last question for you, but I think Mandisa wanted to jump in real quick.
Ooh,
Yes,
Mandy.
yay! Thank you so much. This was an amazing conversation. I really, really appreciate everything you had to say, Foxy.
Oh, thank
It's been really
you.
amazing. So I wanted to ask, because both of us do come from the hood.
That's
You're
right.
and so
Bronx,
I'm not
gang, gang.
ashamed of that, from Queens, South Side,
That's
40
Queens. Yeah,
Projects.
that's right.
But the thing is that for many of us, like you said, we saw these types of dynamics. Many of us were even exposed to them as children. I know I was, but there may not have been a name for it. Certainly, our aunts, our uncles, and the people in our communities were not able to have these, or they didn't have these type of discussions, maybe either because they didn't think they could, or they didn't know how to. But it was already happening. The problem was the lack of resources, and as you said, as and as a part of hood culture, there is a lot of shaming of women and girls
Yeah.
when it comes to sexuality, and there is so much in the way of hypocrisy and duality. So it's like, you know my question is, how do we go about, because of course, in our neighborhoods, you're not supposed to, being smart, or being nerdy is frowned upon, or doing certain things sexually is considered something that white people do or other people do. So it's like, how do we go about breaking those stigmas and showing that there's nothing wrong with it? And like you said, Kevon, it doesn't mean that you cannot adapt to it. how do we normalize it in our communities to, the education part and also the embracing of it?
Well, I think there needs to be more education first. More of us need to be in those spaces, educating young people, participating in the school boards where we know that that folks are debating whether these things should be taught or not to children. Having those conversations with our neighbors and our friends. Sometimes if it's in your ministries, then for a lot of this stuff, we're going to have to meet folks where they are. Not everybody's going to get on the boat. Not everybody's going to get off the island, but you do what you can, you put it out there, and just understand that for a lot of folks, it's hard because it's had pretty much centuries head start over what we're doing now. So, but from what I've seen from some of the youth these days, I think the kids will be all right.
Yeah,
as they
get
say.
it. The kids get it. It's the adults that need
Yeah,
more
it's
education.
it's the adults that need it. They have
Mhm.
to, they have to see that that it would be within their best interest to do so. And also sometimes I get it because surviving capitalism, you're not always allowed to or have that space to try to think about, what was I brought up with and why is it, to think about all the inconsistencies that you may deal with and start to connect those dots. For some people, it's just not in their ministry. For them, it's just easier to go about it. It is what it is, but for those who are actually like, complain, they may have some complaints about it and you can sort of see that they might be on the right track, then you definitely, put them on the game, and understand that, let them know that, listen, like, unlearning toxic stuff is a diligent thing. You're not going to unlearn everything in one day, because like, even for me, it would be so easy. It would be way too easy for me to like rebrand myself as like female Kevin Samuels and just preach to the choir. Like I would get 100 times more attention than I get these days now, just by, towing the line. But that's not what I'm about. I'm about helping folks get free. And often, on the road to get free, you're not going to be told what you want to hear. You're going to be told what you need to hear.
Yes,
So
definitely. Before we let you go, though, is there anything you wanted to promote? Anything you have coming up that you would like the audience to know?
Okay, so please, yes, Tanya Gibbs just put the link for my channel, for my YouTube channel. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I am still in the process of editing some footage from the Women in Color from Beyond conference, the panel that I was on, and then another panel that I recorded. Check out my Twitch channel every Wednesday at 9. My talk show called So This Is What It Is, twitch.tv/Foxy Jazzabelle TV. And I also on other days I also stream games and fighting, mostly first person shooters, horror games right now. I'm waiting for Street Fighter 6. Sadly, I didn't get into the beta, so I couldn't test it out. So I have to wait till next year, but it's okay. I forgive you, Capcom, maybe. But yeah, also follow me on Twitter. I'm active on there a lot, at Foxy Jazzabelle, Instagram at Foxy Jazzabelle, Facebook.com/Foxy Jazzabelle.
Yeah. I want to thank you for being on the show. You were one of the guests I really, really wanted to talk about because like I said, we have spoken before at the Women of Color Conference, and I knew this would be interesting as it was. But yeah, thanks for being on the show. Please do remember to subscribe to Foxy's blog and her Instagram. We will have those links for you in the chat. Thanks, Foxy.
Thank you.
Oh. Hey, Mandisa.
Hey, sorry. Sorry, Foxy. I didn't mean to just remove you there so quickly, but oh my gosh, this was so great. Thank you, Kevon, for interviewing Foxy. This was just
That wasn't an interview.
really
That was just two
great
friends
conversation.
talking.
Nice. Those are the best types of interviews. That's awesome.
Yeah. So before we get to announcements, is there anything you wanted to add?
Nope, that was it. I mean, this was I just encourage people, like Foxy said, unlearning a lot of the indoctrination, especially the harmful parts, is a process. It is good for us to get in touch with how we feel about it, but making sure that when we do feel and when we express it, that we are being objective and that we are being careful and caring to the people around us, because we are still impacting others. And not to say that to tone it down or anything like that, because it's good to be expressive, but also to try to be mindful, because everyone's situations is different. And it's good to understand things on a subjective basis as much as possible, and be forgiving to ourselves as well. That's important.
Okay. All right. I definitely agree. That being said, we have a couple of announcements coming up for you. First, I want to remind you to check out the Where We're Headed podcast, which is a production of our Washington, D.C. affiliates. It's a great podcast. You can check it out at www.podbean.com. We'll have the link up for that in the chats. Also, here in New York, you want to join us tomorrow for brunch at Peach's Hot House. I'll be hosting a brunch meetup tomorrow from 1 to 4 p.m. It's just a short walk from the ANC train here in Brooklyn. It's in Bed-Stuy, so come out and see us tomorrow at Peach's at 1.
And also, the Center for Faith, Justice, and Reconciliation is proud to present their second annual Religious Freedom Mobile Institute from October 22nd through the 29th. This is a virtual event. Join me and other organizers and leaders for this very important event. It is an interfaith dialogue and discussion. Sabrina Dent is the main facilitator. You've seen her on the show before. She's an amazing person. Please do register. It is free to attend, but you must register from October 27th through the 29th. And also, religious trauma group coaching is back for a third quarter. Once again, we've partnered with My Choice, My Power Counseling to bring affordable sessions for those of you who are still struggling with religious trauma. You've met and seen Sundria Hall on our very first show. And also, we had her back in the summer to talk more about, religious trauma and the group coaching. She was also one of the amazing speakers at the Women of Color Beyond Belief conference. So you can go to our website to sign up for those sessions. The link will be in the chat.
Yes, of course. And Women of Color Beyond Belief 2020 has concluded, but we still need your support. The talks from Women of Color are available on this YouTube channel, so go ahead and check that out. You can also visit WOCBeyondBelief.com to see pictures and support Black Nonbelievers.
And also, last but not least, while the official registration for BNCCon 2022 has ended, if you would still like to go and attend, please let us know. There could be an opportunity for you to still come aboard with us. We are sailing on the Carnival Spirit from November 27th through December 3rd. We will have a pre-cruise reception on November 26th at the Courtyard Miami Airport. And so, you can visit the website at bnccon.com or BlackNonbelievers.org, or just reach out to us on any one of our platforms.
Yes. And that wraps up the episode. This has been In the Cut. We hope you enjoyed the show. Remember, it's on every first and third Saturday of the month. Please don't forget to like the video and spread the word. Of course, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on there, of course, on YouTube for the Women of Color, as well as In the Cut. Be sure to look for us on meetup.com. Find your local BN affiliate and join, and make a tax-deductible donation on blacknonbelievers.com/donate. And if you want something in return for your donation, we do have swag like shirts, hoodies, mugs, shot glasses. So check us out there. Really appreciate you joining us this afternoon. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.